Hey, take it easy. It's just me, the stranger said, lowering his hand. You're a jumpy one, aren't you? He smiled and scooted himself closer shyly and awkwardly. Uncomfortable, I scooched away, arms held tight to my lap and fingers interlocked. Hi, I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. His eyes narrowed at the distance that was put between them. He let out a small huff, crossing his arms. Despite his intimidating appearance, he was being extremely shy. Hey, I was just sitting here and I noticed you were alone. Oh, I nodded my lower lip. I wasn't sure what to say. Okay. I stared at a patch of weeds growing up in the middle of the gravel path. The silence between them was extremely awkward. He wanted to break the silence. Can I ask you a question? I guess. A wrinkle appeared between my brows, gently frowning. Almost unwillingly, I turned just the slightest toward him, staring at the point of his chin. The stranger chuckled awkwardly at the fact that you weren't even making eye contact with him, but he couldn't bring himself to feel annoyed by it. He uncrossed his arms, placing them on his lap instead. Do you have a boyfriend? He asked the question slowly and hesitantly. What the hell? My thoughts froze. Who came up to someone and asked that kind of question? Did I have a boyfriend? Wind gently rushed between the two of us and I shivered. I didn't want to answer, but he was still staring at me, waiting. I swallowed. My fingers tugged at a loose thread at the hem of my shirt. No, I finally said, wondering if I was making a mistake. Maybe I should just lie and say yes. A sly smirk crossed his face as you confirmed his suspicion. A small chuckle escaped his lips. That's good, he said in a slightly possessive manner. The stranger continued to stare at you, as if he was studying your every expression, looking for a single hint of weakness. Again, I wasn't sure how to respond. That's good? What kind of response was that? My shoulders drew in, taut. I shifted on the bench, contemplating getting up and leaving this whole strange conversation behind me. The stranger noticed your shift on the bench and immediately scooted closer to you until your legs were nearly touching. He leaned in slightly. You know, it's dangerous for a girl like you to be all alone out here in the park. He spoke quietly and almost in a mocking tone, like he was scolding you for your decision to come here by yourself. Okay, I rushed to my feet. It was nice. Meeting you was... I shook my head and took another step away. I have a thing. I'm gonna be late. I avoided his eyes and took another step down the path, ready to hightail it away. He was not about to let you leave so easily. He quickly stood up and grabbed your arm in a firm but gentle grip. His other hand came to rest on your hip, stopping you in your tracks completely. Where are you going, sweetheart? He asked with a smirk. I didn't dare answer him. My heart thumped in my chest. My lungs felt tight. My whole body felt faint with adrenaline. He was giving me the creeps. The smirk on his face grew, and his fingers on your hip began to trace small circles on your skin. Don't you think it's a little rude to run off without even telling me your name, princess? He teased, his tone taking on a dark and mocking quality. I didn't want to tell him my name. I wanted to rip free and run away. It felt like a hair caught in a wolf's teeth. My name is Anne, I said, lying. He snickered as you spoke. He had seen straight through it. That's not your real name, darling, he said, as he leaned his head forward, his mouth next to your ear. His voice was low and quiet, almost like a whisper. Don't lie to me, princess. I don't like liars. I'm not lying, I denied, but my voice was too high, giving me away. I swallowed, feeling my pulse thump from within my throat. He laughed again, his hot breath tickling your ear. He tightened his grip on you even more, practically crushing you against his chest. No, I think you are, he spoke in a low, commanding voice. He began to slowly drag you down the path. I dug my shoes in, trailing gravel, but he continued to drag me along as though I offered no resistance at all. If I tell you, then can I go? I whispered. He stopped walking as you whispered to him, turning you around to face him. Sure, princess, he said, his tone softening ever so slightly. You can go if you tell me your real name. I stared into his eyes, trying to discern if he was telling me the truth. My name is Angel. A satisfied smirk returned to his face. He slowly let go of your arm, his hand now coming to rest on your chin, tilting your head up to look at him. His eyes were fixed on yours, studying you intently. That's a beautiful name, he said quietly. Should I thank him? That seemed like the safest option, but did he really deserve thanks? Can I go now? He chuckled again, but this time it was more gentle and amused. His thumb slowly rubbed across your chin as he looked at you. Not yet, darling. You promised to stay with me until I found out your name, and I have your name now. Yes, I told you, which means I should be able to go, right? His other hand now came to rest on your hip, pulling you closer to him once more. You were so close that you could feel his breath against your face. I said that I let you go if you told me your name, but I never said anything about what I would do after you told me it. I frowned. He was right. He never promised, never really laid out the terms of it all. His smirk turned into a wolfish grin as he leaned down closer to your face. He was mere centimeters away from you now, so close that his lips were almost touching your ear. Well, I'm thinking of making you my little pet, he whispered in a low, sultry voice. What? My eyes widened. I tried to take a step back, but didn't get far. He chuckled darkly, grabbing your wrists and pinning them against his chest. His face was so close to yours that you could practically feel the warmth radiating from him. You heard me, princess, he murmured. I shook my head, staring up at him with wide, shocked eyes. You seemed to be enjoying your confusion and distress, finding it almost cute how you struggled to understand his intentions. You're a pretty girl, all alone, just begging to be taken advantage of. I'm not, I immediately denied. I've just been enjoying the park, taking some time for myself, enjoying the wind and the sun and birdsong. I wasn't asking to be taken advantage of. He rolled his eyes at your denial, clearly not buying it. He leaned in even closer, his nose now touching yours. His eyes were narrowed, studying you intently as he spoke. Of course you are, darling, he said, in a low, condescending tone. You think I haven't noticed how you've been eyeing every single man here, waiting for someone to come over and flirt with you? It wasn't confusion I felt now, but some slow kind of slithering humiliation. I hated it. I hadn't been looking at anyone. We were at the park. There was no one to eye. The path I'd been on had been nearly empty. And all the time I'd sat on the park bench by myself, I'd seen all the three people. An elderly couple walking hand in hand, and some 20-year-old woman jogging with headphones on her ears, and then this stranger, currently keeping my arms pinned. His smirk grew even wider at your embarrassed expression, and he chuckled again. He was clearly enjoying this, reveling in the power he had over you. He leaned in to whisper in your ear once more. Don't deny it, princess. I could see the way you were looking at them. You were practically drooling. My chin quivered. My eyes burned hotly. I felt 2 seconds away from bursting into tears. Aw, look at you, he cooed mockingly, using his free hand to gently wipe away a tear from your cheek. Crying already, princess? I've barely even touched you yet. I want to go. Let me go. My breath stuttered in my chest, heavy with a humiliating emotion constricting my lungs. He chuckled again, completely ignoring your plea. Instead, he let go of your wrists and grabbed your waist and said, pulling you even closer until your body was pressed flush against his. No, darling, I don't think I will. My eyes closed, causing tears to spill down my cheeks. My fingers clenched into my own clothing, fingers trembling. my teeth shut tight so I wouldn't let loose the sob that seemed to climb up my throat. With an aching inhale through my nose, my head fell forward. Unfortunately, he'd encroached so tightly into my space that the move had my nose slipping into the warm muscle of his chest. He had you right where he wanted you, trapped and crying against him. There we go, darling. Cry all you want. I'll be here to comfort you, he said, wrapping his arms around you and pulling you into a tight embrace. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt too thick. His pulling arms had my head tucked under his chin. So I did. I cried. I cried until all the emotion that had built up had finally leached out of me like a wrung towel. My limbs felt heavy, and my head and eyes ached. I snuffled into his chest, drained and exhausted. That's a good girl. Let it all out. Get it all out of your system. His arms felt like heated bands of warmth crossing over my back and shoulders. If he hadn't been the cause of my distress, it might have even felt comforting. But the thick cotton currently filling my tired head made it hard to care. My eyes felt heavy enough to fall asleep where I stood. He smiled, enjoying the feeling of you snuggled up against him. He was loving the power he had over you, the way you were so helpless and vulnerable right now. After a few minutes of stroking your hair, he spoke up again, his voice quiet and soft. Are you feeling better now, princess? Unfortunately, I was. I heaved a shaking sigh, burrowing my forehead deeper into the softness of his shirt. Yes, I finally said, voice muffled. Good. He paused for a moment, taking a breath before continuing to speak. You know, I think you look so much better when you're not crying, princess. You were the reason I was crying, though. He rolled his eyes, clearly not impressed by your response. And whose fault is it that I had to make you cry in the first place? Yours, I muttered instantly. Part of me, the part not currently exhausted and wrung out by crying, felt incredulous. He snorted at your quick and simple answer, amused by your bratty attitude. You're a little brat, you know that, he said in a mockingly sweet tone. You must bring it out in me, I said, eyes still shut against the daylight of the park, tired. He chuckled again, clearly amused by your response. He liked that you were being bratty. Or maybe you just enjoy getting under my skin, he replied, giving your hip a light squeeze. Maybe that was the only recourse left to me, held tight to a stranger I still didn't know the name of. I'm still waiting for you to let me leave. He was in no rush to let you go. Why would I do that, princess? I'm enjoying our little conversation here. He noticed a slight movement as your eyes cracked open and his smirk widened. He loved seeing you all vulnerable and submissive like this, looking up at him with those big, tired eyes. Aw, come on. Don't give me that look, princess. You know I can't resist it when you pout like that. Oh, princess, you're just too easy to rile up, he said with a grin, gently pinching your cheek. I slapped his hand away. It seemed like the utter mortification I'd felt blubbering all over his shirt had been good for one thing. I wasn't particularly scared anymore. He was taken back by the slap, not expecting you to have the guts to do that. His expression darkened slightly, but the amused smile quickly returned. Oh, princess, you shouldn't have done that, he said in a low, warning tone. Oh, I queried, and why's that? What else could he do to me? He was already holding me here against my will. He had already made me cry. He took a deep breath, clearly struggling to keep his composure. Because I'm gonna punish you for that, princess, he said through gritted teeth. Part of me didn't believe him. He'd been all talk so far. Here? I asked. In the middle of the park? Part of my newfound belligerence wanted me to open my mouth wide and scream. What would he do then? You're a brat, princess. A real brat, he repeated, before looking back down at you with a dangerous glint in his eye. You're coming with me, princess. And you're gonna do it quietly. Why would I do that? I jerked my chin to the side, fighting his hold. He growled, his grip on your chin tightening to the point of pain. Fuck you. The mild annoyance I'd been feeling was swiftly consumed by an all-encompassing and fiery rage like I'd never felt before. I wasn't letting him take me anywhere. Quickly slapped a hand over your mouth, silencing you before you could scream. What did I just say about being quiet, princess? He said through gritted teeth. Adrenaline flooded my body. I thrashed in his grasp. Knock it off, princess. You're only making things worse for yourself. He clenched his jaw, growing more and more frustrated with your stubbornness. He was losing his patience. The thought of dragging you out of the park in such a public setting only made him angrier. I warned you, he said, his voice low and cold. Without warning, he grabbed you around the waist and hoisted you over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. He began to walk towards the edge of the park, carrying you like you weighed nothing at all. I squealed, kicking out with my legs. He positioned me face forward over his shoulder so that he could still keep one large hand clenched over my mouth and jaw. He felt you squirming and kicking against him, and he couldn't help but let a low, irritated growl. Stop struggling now. His low tone sent a pulse of fear through my body. But I'd made my bed and I couldn't stop now. I dug a knee into his back. Damn it, princess! Will you just behave yourself for 1 minute? No, of course I wouldn't. He stopped in his tracks, his grip on your wrists and mouth tightening painfully. He seemed to be at the end of his rope, his patience with you completely gone. That's it. You're asking for it, princess, he said, his voice a low, dangerous snarl. He began walking again, this time much faster than before. He was headed toward the alleyway next to the park, a place where he knew he could be more alone with you. He continued to walk, ignoring your attempts to break free. The thought of finally being able to have you all to himself, without any interruptions, only made him more eager. Eventually he reached the alleyway and quickly stepped inside. The darkness of the space enveloped you both, and he looked around to make sure there was no one else around. Finally. All alone, princess. I yelled beneath the hand still silencing me, knees still kicking into his back. He'd have to put me down, eventually, right? I could break free, run, maybe. I tried to wrench my mouth wider beneath his palm, hoping to bite him. But he quickly pulled his hand away from your mouth. But instead of escaping, you only gave him a chance to clamp his hand over your nose as well, preventing you from breathing properly. My head wrenched beneath his hand, eyes going wide. My lungs burned. I struggled frantically as my chest heaved. The tears I thought I'd already all cried out crept back into my eyes with my lack of oxygen. The consuming panic made the edges of my vision dim. My body gave one last frantic explosion of movement as I tried to free myself, and then went limp. After a few more seconds, he removed his hand from your nose, allowing you to gasp for air. There, princess. Take a deep, deep breath, he said, his tone mocking and sarcastic. I choked on a sob. Air rushed into my lungs. My throat burned. A headache throbbed behind my eyes. My vision was blurry, and the only reason I was upright was because he still held me over top of his shoulder. Gasping, I lay limp against his body. He smirked as he watched you gasp and cough, enjoying the way your body was still trembling against him. And he began to stroke your back with his free hand, his fingers tracing small circles on your skin. "Aw, princess, did I scare you?" I couldn't answer. I was terrified. Tears gathered in my lashes. He chuckled softly as he saw the tears in your eyes, finding your fear amusing. He continued to stroke your back, his touch gentle, yet possessive. "Oh, don't cry, princess. You're gonna make me feel bad," he said, although his tone clearly indicated that he didn't feel bad at all. Him telling me not to cry only made my tears fall faster. Hanging over his shoulder wasn't helping my headache or my gasping, sobbing breaths. I felt defeated. He gave your back a gentle pat, as if trying to soothe you. "Hush, princess. You're only making it worse for yourself by crying." I couldn't stop. but his patting hand gentled the sobs forced from my throat. Fuck. Why had the day turned into this unending, horrible nightmare? I wanted to be curled up at home with a nice mug of tea. I wanted to be curled beneath my blankets, warm and safe. I wanted a hug. I wanted to feel safe again. He continued to pat your back, his touch becoming a little more forceful as he tried to stop your sobbing. You're mine now, princess. There's no going back. My breath shuddered, trying to get myself under control. A thought entered my head, but it was ridiculous. I wanted a hug. No, I couldn't ask. It was stupid. Can I bit my lip in frustration. He tilted his head slightly to the side, waiting for you to continue. Yes, princess. What is it you want? Fuck. This was humiliating. And I still wanted to ask. Him! The stranger had caused all my current suffering. Frustration made the fought-back tears in my eyes well again. Can I have a hug? He finally asked. He hadn't been expecting that, but he was happy to hear that you wanted something from him. He chuckled, amused by how vulnerable and desperate you sounded when you asked him for a hug. Aw, princess, you want a hug? You want me to hold you close and make you feel safe? He wrapped his arms around you, pulling you close to him and hugging you tightly. His chest was firm and warm against your face, and you could feel the steady beat of his heart. He continued to hold you, his arms encircling your body like a cage, like he was never going to let you go. There you go, princess. Just like that. You're safe now. I've got you. Surging forward, my arms gripped at the back of his shirt, fingers clenched so tightly that they hurt with the effort. God, I was sick of crying. When I used to imagine being, non-literally, swept off my feet, I'd imagine kind hands and warm eyes and arms that made me feel safe. Tears dripped into the fabric beneath my cheek. He held you even tighter, his arms like a vice around your body. His expression was still somewhat smug, but there was also a hint of something else there now. Something dark and hungry. Let it all out, princess. Cry all you want. You're safe to cry in my arms. He began to stroke your hair, his touch gentle yet possessive. I trembled into his hold, the tears slowing the longer he held me in his hug. My knees felt loose, like I'd fall if he let me go. And the longer he held you, the more he wanted to keep you with him. You're so tired, princess. So worn out. You need to rest. I made a small, consenting noise. I did want to rest. He began to slowly guide you away from the alleyway, still holding you in his arms. There we go, princess. Just relax and let me take care of you. You're safe with me. I promise.